inspiring story. Once upon a time, there was a young man full of dreams. From a young age, everyone told him he had natural talent. He ran faster, learned easily, and enchanted those who watched him. He believed this gift was enough to take him to the top. And for a time it was. The applause, the praise, and the exaggerated confidence made him relax. Inside he thought, if I was born with talent, I don't need to try as hard as others. Meanwhile, in his town, there was another young man. He didn't have the same gifts, nor did he receive the same praise. Many said he would never reach the same level as his rival. But this young man possessed something the other despised: discipline. He woke up early, trained while everyone else was still asleep, and repeated the same exercises hundreds of times until he became better, a little bit each day. The two began to compete. At first, the talented one won effortlessly, but over time, the gap began to narrow, until in a decisive competition, the surprise happened: the disciplined one won. It wasn't luck, it wasn't chance. It was the result of sleepless nights, silent dawns, sweat, and hidden tears. The talented one didn't understand. How is that possible? I'm faster, stronger, smarter. But the truth is that talent without discipline wears out, while discipline without talent grows and matures. The defeat was painful. For the first time, he felt the bitter taste of losing something he believed he had already conquered. He returned home with his head down, and in the silence of his room, a phrase echoed inside him like a constant hammer. While you sleep, someone is training. Those words became a turning point. He realized that, however talented he was, he had wasted precious time believing that his skill alone would sustain him. That day, he made a decision. He would change his life. Discipline would be his new companion. He woke up the next day before sunrise. His body was complaining. His mind was trying to convince him to go back to bed. But he resisted. He remembered the defeat. He remembered his rival. He remembered the phrase. And he trained. The process wasn't easy. With each step, he discovered that physical strength wasn't enough, but mental strength as well. He discovered that true victory wasn't in beating others, but in beating himself every day. From then on, his journey changed. He was no longer just a talented young man everyone admired. Now, he was the disciplined young man who inspired. He understood that talent is only the starting point, but it is discipline that takes you to the finish line. And thus was born the great truth that resonates to this day. The world can admire talent, but it only respects discipline. Discipline is the hidden advantage. The young man had already learned a painful lesson. Talent alone doesn't sustain anyone for long. It was then that he began to discover the great truth. Discipline is the hidden advantage that separates dreamers from achievers. At first, waking up before the sun seemed like a sacrifice. Sleep screamed. The bed seemed an irresistible invitation. But as he got up each day, he realized something that would forever change his outlook on life. While the world slept, he gained time. Every minute he enjoyed in the early hours of the day became a brick placed in the construction of his future. Talent opens doors, yes. It can put someone on the stage, on the field, in the ring, or in front of an audience. But only discipline keeps them there. How many talents have been applauded and then forgotten? How many have reached the top, but never stayed? The young man realized that the difference wasn't in shining for a moment, but in remaining steadfast when all the spotlights faded. He began training when no one was watching. There were no fans, no applause, no recognition. Just him, the silence, and constant effort. That's when he understood the secret. Discipline works in silence, but the results scream out loud. While his friends wasted hours on distractions, he seized every second to improve. While many improvised, he repeated. While some waited for motivation, he acted consistently. He discovered that discipline doesn't depend on feelings, but on decisions. Each day of effort accumulated small, invisible victories. His body strengthened, his mind expanded, and his confidence became unshakable. Discipline was not just a habit, but a secret weapon that set him apart. He no longer competed only with others, but with his own version of yesterday. Inspired by stories of great athletes, musicians, and entrepreneurs, the young man understood that they all had something in common: They weren't the most talented, but the most disciplined. Michael Jordan would stay practicing shooting after everyone else had left. Beethoven composed until he lost his hearing. Successful entrepreneurs worked when no one believed in them. The pattern was always the same: silent discipline, extraordinary results. Over time, what seemed like sacrifice became a lifestyle. Waking up early was no longer suffering, but pleasure. Training until his body ached was no longer punishment, but a privilege. Discipline had become his greatest advantage, a hidden advantage, invisible to those seeking shortcuts. He finally understood that discipline doesn't rob freedom, but empowers. It's not a burden, but a path. It's not an enemy, but an ally. And so, day after day, he began to build something no one could take away from him: consistency. Because, in the end, it's not the most talented who wins, but the most consistent. Chapter 3: Discipline Builds Endurance. The first few days of intense training were tough. His body complained, his mind sought excuses, and each morning felt like a battle against himself. But it was on this inner battlefield that the young man began to discover a new power: endurance. Training when rested is easy. Sticking to a routine when you have energy and motivation is simple. But continuing when tired, sore, and lacking in willpower requires something greater. It requires discipline. And it was precisely then that he realized that every effort, even the smallest, was shaping not only his muscles, but also his mind. Endurance isn't born from initial strength, but from constant repetition in the face of difficulties. With each workout he completed, he strengthened his ability to withstand pressure. When his legs ached, he reminded himself, "While I rest, someone is running. While I stop, someone is moving forward." And this reminder pushed him to take another step. Soon, his mind began to change. Laziness, once his faithful companion, lost ground. The comfort zone, which once seemed like a safe haven, became his mortal enemy. He discovered that the human body has limits, but a disciplined mind can always go beyond. Defeats no longer carried the same weight. Before, a loss would knock him down, making him doubt himself. Now, each failure became fuel. Discipline had taught him that falling is not a sign of weakness, but an opportunity to rise stronger. He also realized that the resilience built through training went far beyond the physical. In his studies, at work, in his relationships, in all areas of life, he began to withstand pressures that would previously have crushed him. Discipline gave him invisible armor against difficulties. While many gave up at the first hurdle, he kept going. While some complained about the burden of the journey, he had already learned to carry heavier loads. The secret wasn't in being better than everyone else, but in being resilient when others gave up. Each workout became a life lesson. A difficult race taught him perseverance. A repetitive exercise taught him patience. An unexpected defeat taught him humility. Everything worked together to forge a stronger spirit, capable of weathering storms without wavering. Deep down, he understood that success is not for the fastest or the most talented, but for the most resilient. Those who endure until the end always achieve it. And so, with sweat, pain, and daily effort, the young man built what would become his greatest asset: the ability to not give up. Because talent may impress for a moment, but only discipline builds enough endurance to win the marathon of life. Discipline builds character. Over time, the young man realized that discipline wasn't just transforming his body and mind. It was shaping something even deeper: his character. At first, his motivation was simply to win, to overcome his rival, and to prove that he, too, could be the best. But as training became routine, he began to understand that discipline was much more than a tool for achieving results. It was a school of values. Every early morning, wake-up taught him responsibility. Every workout done without an audience taught him humility. Every silent repetition, without applause, showed him that true value lies not in external recognition, but in the integrity of persevering even when no one is watching. Discipline became a mirror that reflected who he truly was. Before, he relied solely on the gift he had been given. Today, he relied on his dedication. Before, he depended on praise for motivation. Now, his motivation came from within. Before, he wanted to impress others. Now, he wanted to be true to himself. Daily effort shaped his identity. He stopped being just the talented one and became the dedicated one. The brilliance of his gift was fleeting, but the strength of his character was permanent. He understood that character is doing what's right, even when no one is watching, and discipline taught him exactly that. Training in silence, sticking to his routine, keeping his commitments to himself. No one needed to see. No one needed to applaud. True triumph happened in secret. Through this, he also learned patience. Before, he wanted quick results, immediate victories. But discipline taught him that great achievements require time, perseverance, and consistency. He learned to plant today, to reap tomorrow. With each challenge he faced, his character became firmer. He was no longer a hostage to circumstances. Whether it was sunny or rainy, whether he was tired or excited, it didn't matter. He kept going, and this consistency transformed him into someone trustworthy, someone who did what he said, someone who could be respected not just for what he did, but for who he was. The rival, who had previously been just a bothersome shadow, now became an inspiration, not because he was an enemy, but because, without realizing it, he had awakened in him the desire to become better. The young man understood that he was no longer competing with others, but with himself. In the end, discipline had given him more than victories. It had given him non-negotiable values: humility, patience, perseverance, responsibility, and integrity. And these values became his greatest achievement, because a strong character opens doors that talent alone could never keep open. He then understood that the true prize wasn't just a medal, a trophy, or recognition. The true prize was becoming a better person every day, and only discipline could offer him that. Chapter 5. Discipline generates constant overcoming. The young man had already understood that discipline gave him resilience and shaped his character. But along the way, he realized another powerful truth. Discipline constantly pushed him beyond his limits. It didn't allow him to settle, but challenged him daily to surpass himself. Each workout was an opportunity to go further. If yesterday he had run 5 kilometers, today he would attempt 6. If yesterday he had endured 100 repetitions, today he aimed for 120. It wasn't about competing with his rival, but with himself. His greatest challenge lay not in others, but in the mirror. Discipline taught him that limits aren't fixed barriers, but steps to be overcome. His body always said enough, but his mind, trained by discipline, said one more step. And that one more made all the difference. Over time, he discovered that overcoming obstacles doesn't happen overnight, but is the result of small victories accumulated day after day. Before, he saw failure as a defeat. Now, he saw it as a learning experience. Every fall was an opportunity to rise stronger. Discipline had instilled in him a mindset of constant overcoming, never stopping, never giving up, never settling for less. This attitude began to reflect in all areas of his life. In his studies, he read an extra chapter. At work, he always gave a little more than expected. In relationships, he made a greater effort to listen, understand, and serve. He discovered that discipline not only generates results, but also creates a standard of excellence that drives him to become better at everything. With each obstacle overcome, his confidence grew. Not an arrogant confidence based on talent, but a solid confidence based on effort. He knew that, no matter the difficulty, he could endure and overcome it, because discipline had proven it to him countless times. While many sought shortcuts and gave up at the first sign of difficulty, he persevered, and precisely this constancy kept him moving forward. He discovered that discipline made him unstoppable, because even when he fell, he got up. Even when he failed, he started again. Even when he was tired, he kept going. And so, overcoming obstacles ceased to be an event and became a lifestyle. It was no longer about occasional great victories, but about constant, silent progress. Each step forward, no matter how small, was already a victory. The young man then understood that true strength lies not in never falling, but in always getting up. It lies not in never failing, but in never giving up. And only discipline can teach you that, because talent can put you on the map, but it is discipline that ensures you surpass yourself every day, until you become unstoppable. The final victory of the disciplined. Time passed. Years of sweat, effort, and discipline built something that no single talent could achieve. Solid and lasting results. The young man who had previously relied solely on natural gifts was now recognized, not only for his skill, but above all for the consistency that set him apart from everyone else. His talented rival, the one who once seemed unbeatable, had fallen by the wayside. His initial brilliance faded, because without discipline, talent dries up. The disciplined young man, however, continued to grow, mature, and conquer his place. He didn't reach the top overnight, but built his ladder step by step, rung by rung. The victory wasn't a stroke of luck, nor an isolated moment of inspiration. It was the inevitable result of daily choices. He understood that true achievement isn't in winning once, but in remaining victorious over time. And only discipline can sustain this kind of victory. While many slept, he trained. While others gave up, he persisted. While some sought shortcuts, he followed the path of constancy. That was how, silently, he built a legacy. Success did come, but not in the illusory way many seek. It came as a result of shaped character, strengthened resilience, and constant overcoming. He proved to himself that discipline always wins, because it never sleeps. And when he finally received recognition, when the applause echoed and the victories multiplied, he knew he wasn't there just because of the talent he was born with, but because of the hard work he chose to embrace. The trophy was merely a symbol. True victory lay in the process, in the inner transformation, in the man he had become. He understood that success is inevitable for those who pay the price every day, that there is no glory without discipline, no future without effort. What set him apart wasn't luck, but the daily choice to get up, even when his body begged for rest and his mind whispered quitting. In the end, the phrase that had changed his life, "While you sleep, someone is training," was no longer just a reminder. It became his reality. He was now the one who trained while others rested, the one who didn't waste time, the one who turned discipline into victory. And so, the young man who once believed talent would be enough discovered the secret that separates winners from losers. Talent impresses, but discipline conquers, because the ultimate victory always belongs to the disciplined.